Hi, this is Lauren Baker. Welcome to the SEJ Marketing Think Tank webinar. Today, we're bringing on a special guest, Keith Goode from SEO Clarity. Keith is the Chief SEO Evangelist at SEO Clarity and a longtime fan of search engine journals. So welcome to the SEJ Think Tank, Keith.
Well, thank you very much, Lauren. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Pleasure to have you. Just to let everyone know that the official hashtag for today's think tank is hashtag SEJ Think Tank. So let's try to make that trend, everyone. And if you have questions during Keith's presentation, you'll see a question box at the bottom of your GoToWebinar dashboard where you can enter those questions accordingly. Also, we will be recording this webinar via video and uploading to our YouTube channel, along with sharing the slide share from Keith's presentation. So again, SEJ Marketing Think Tank. Today's topic matter is building business cases from SEO initiatives with Keith Goode from SEO Clarity. So I'll hand it over to you, Keith.
Great. Thanks, Lauren. Very happy to be here, and I really appreciate you guys inviting me over to participate in the Marketing Think Tank. I'm a big fan of your webinars and podcasts, etc. So certainly I'm glad to be here. So I will be discussing how to build business cases for SEO initiatives today, and I have a lot of experience in this. If you are interested in knowing who I am, of course, Keith Goode, as Lauren mentioned. I'm the Chief SEO Evangelist for SEO Clarity, but I have spent the vast majority of my career in-house. I'm an old-timer. I've got almost 20 years of online experience and a really long time doing SEO, even though I officially wasn't doing SEO. I was doing it, but I didn't know what it was called back in the 90s. I've been doing SEO officially for about 9 years with companies as small as Sparefoot.com, but also companies, startups like HomeAway, and larger companies like AMD and Dell, where I most recently served for 4 years as the SEO technology lead for their internal agency called DCS or eDell. In addition to that, I was the technical SEO instructor at Dell University. It was a course that we offered for developers, for coders, for pretty much anyone who was interested in learning how to effectively code and mark up a site for SEO benefit. So if you want to see any of my previous presentations, I presented on a lot of the topics that I'm talking about today over on my slide share, Austin Otaku, which is kind of an old nom de plume that I had from online. I still managed to hang on to it somehow or another. So the key takeaways I want you to walk away with today are how to prioritize your SEO deliverables for your specific business needs, how to work with finance for ROI estimates, as well as your product management team to scale iterative releases when necessary, as well as how to measure your KPIs before and after, and to publicize your success. What I will talk about today in general is how to align your SEO initiatives with the business needs that are specific to your company, how to commit to those dollar figures, and then how to help your product team help you. Following that, we'll talk a little bit about how to measure and follow up on your success. Before we begin that, though, I wanted to get a really general understanding of our audience today and who I'm speaking with. So, Lauren, if you want to kick off that first poll, we're going to ask you, how would you describe your current role? All right, are you an in-house SEO? Are you agency? In-house other? So, are you one of the executives responsible for steering, or a marketer in-house, or are you an other? I don't know what that means. Other.
Awesome, and we have about 53% of our audience today. The think tank has voted, so we'll give you a few more seconds. We're at 60%. There's still some time. Jump on. Fill out the polls. It's coming soon. All right, countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Polls are closed.
Polls are closed. Thanks for participating. How do we look there, Lauren? We have a few Sharing poll results here. All
Yes.
right. So
So
a
you'll
lot
see
of,
that. Go
yeah,
ahead.
a lot of you are agency SEOs, which is hopefully some of the stuff I'll talk about today will help you help the folks that you're working with in-house. But then also I see a lot of agency or in-house SEOs, which is fantastic. Yeah, that's great. Thanks for participating. So the first section we'll talk about here is you really, do you need that, right? Wants versus needs. And this is how to specifically align your SEO requests with business needs. We did a study a while back at SEO Clarity asking in-house SEOs, really, how do you spend your time? And a great majority of their time, based on what we saw, is focused on data aggregation and reporting, as well as analyzing that data and doing research related to that data. 77% of their time is spent on dealing with data. And a lot of that, of course, can be taken care of by having a good SEO platform in hand. But what I noticed missing from this portion here was how much of your time is spent fighting for technical changes on your site. I know from my experience, I spent a great deal of my time publicizing my needs, politicizing my needs, shaking hands, kissing babies, you know, the whole 9 yards, trying to get support in-house. And I think we'll need to redo this poll just to see how much time people are spending on that activity alone. We find that the battle itself is really kind of dependent upon the sophistication of the enterprise itself as well as the SEO. I like to call this my SEO-PHISTICATION matrix, right? I don't know if you like that or not, Lauren. I think that's pretty funny myself. But in this matrix, you've got a gradient scale of organizational SEO sophistication, how knowledgeable the organization is of SEO, as well as the user's specific SEO sophistication, the actual SEO person itself. And what we tend to see in this matrix are in the first quadrant are the newbies, and this is newbies on both sides. You've got organizations that are not very familiar with or have very limited buy-in of SEO, as well as the newbie SEOs who are trying to sort of work their way through prioritizing tasks. Many SEOs, I feel, are what we call pioneers. They understand the value of SEO, and they are really trying hard to do what's right for the organization, but the organization itself is not terribly sophisticated. In some cases, you see where the organization has complete buy-in to SEO, but they have sort of limited knowledge sets within their actual SEO organization itself. And of course, then the ideal scenario for all of us is to be, in the leaders, right? Or sophisticated organizations as well as sophisticated knowledge itself. What I think we're going to be talking about today are generally the pioneers here, the pioneers and the newbies, the folks that where the organization itself may not have the level of sophistication in SEO that is necessary to sort of quickly go, yep, you have this SEO need, here's some money, have fun, right? Because frankly, technical SEO is a set of endless activities, right? I mean, there's always something that pops up based on any releases that pop up from Google, from Bing, etc. Mobile's been big here recently, right? So that was something that was a high priority suddenly for a lot of folks. But technical SEO, and one of the reasons I really focus on this, is really the foundation for the rest of the search experience itself. You can build relevance with good content. You can build authority with a good social outreach program, good link building efforts, good blog efforts, but on top of that has to be built on top of a good base, right? A usable, fast, responsive website. This is why technology is very, very important. So, I think I'm trying to talk about things that are in vogue now, right? And so, Mobilegeddon was here recently. Lauren, you're very familiar with that. You've heard all about it in Search Engine Journal. I think a lot of people are calling it Mobile Nothing now, or Mobile Nothing instead of Mobilegeddon. But this was a big thing here recently. But the question sort of pops up for in-house SEOs is it really pertinent to you, right? So mobile growth, yes, up to roughly 400% growth over the past 200 years. 200 years. It's it's more like 1,000,000% over the past 200 years, 400% growth over the past 2 years. And of course, it's very important to rank very well in mobile because the click-through rates in mobile are just amazing, right? From the first position at 27.7% down to the second position at 9%, you really should be ranking first. But is it really your top priority for your business? A lot of B2B businesses haven't seen the benefit from being on mobile as B2C businesses, for example, right? And we see this based on some of the studies that we've done where we've actually seen a lot of traffic coming in from mobile that are, one second here, turn this over, it's distracting me, you know, where you see e-com, you know, the traffic from e-com coming in from mobile that's just out of the, you know, it's really, really accelerating. Whereas B2B mobile, not so much. And we find that, you know, a lot of B2B merchandisers tend to have very expensive products, and people don't tend to buy on mobile devices when they're spending $100,000 or $200,000, right? This is not a very easy click, right? And we see this within the market as well. This eMarketer study looked at some of the spending channels for executives worldwide for B2B, and mobile was one of their least valuable items for them. So there may be better ways to spend your budget and your resources. And you really need to play to your strongest channels. And so if you are B2B, mobile may not be your biggest priority, but it may be something that when you have the extra time and the budget and the resources, then of course give it a try. So my whole point in this is that you really need to take a look at what your business needs are, how your users interact with your site, and what they need from a user perspective to make it the best experience for them. SEO is not an off-the-rack solution, right? There's no one way to do SEO that's right for every single business out there or every single industry out there. You need to choose your priorities based on the relevance to your business, right? What you want isn't always the first thing you need. So sure, it may have been in vogue to get your site mobile ready for April 21st. But what happens when, sure, you increase your iOS traffic by 20%, but you increase your conversion rates by 0, right? That's not going to look very impressive to the executive that that bought into your panic, right? So choosing the right focus for your development efforts will reap more easily provable benefits, and this is where internal politics comes into play. You have to build a foundation of credibility for your role so that you don't come across as the boy who cried wolf every single time that something happens in the SEO industry. So in this example here, you know, URLs. You might really want to focus on URLs before you focus on mobile. And maybe your user experience is terrible. That's a higher priority than mobile, especially for B2B businesses. So really, once you've had a chance to align your SEO goals with your business goals, then you need to justify the project that you're asking money for with money, right? It's why we're all here. You know, I hate to use references from the prequels, quite frankly, but Watto was a good example of the executive mindset, right? Mind tricks don't work on me, only money, right? I'm not going to do it in his voice, by the way. I need water as it is. But what you really need to do when you're building out these cases is move beyond should to must, right? And the only way you can do this is with dollar figures, right? So think about what this is going to cost to implement. So if you need to, let's say, move your URLs to a much more SEO-friendly URL structure, consider what the costs are. What are the dev time costs? What are the resources involved in this? And then measure those against the benefit that you expect to achieve from the changes, right? Incremental revenue based on traffic increases is always a good thing, but also increased in conversion rates. So if you're making a change to your site that involves user experience, it may not necessarily improve your traffic per se, but you'll see an increase in your revenue per visit or your conversion rates on your site. So also keep in mind, what is your organization's minimally acceptable ROI? I can tell you for some organizations, that's $10 to $1. So for every $1 of their money that you spend, they expect you to give them $10 in return. It's actually a lot higher for enterprise organizations. And so if you come to them and you say, well, I can get you an incremental revenue of an additional $10 million per year. So for average Joes like me and you, having an extra $10 million is fantastic. But for a multi-billion-dollar company, they're like, meh, okay, well, maybe. We'll think about it. So think about what is the minimally acceptable ROI, and feel free to talk to your executives about that. What do you consider to be a minimally acceptable return on investment? So how do we get around to estimating the impact and therefore the revenue associated with any of these changes? Well, there are a couple of ways. I'll talk a little bit about how to estimate for an all or nothing type of scenario where you're in a highly templatized environment and a development change that you make will have to be applied universally rather than, you know, in an A/B test type of scenario. But one of the things you definitely want to make sure you're doing is monitor the blogs on a consistent basis, industry studies, etc., from Search Engine Journal, Search Engine Land, Search Engine Roundtable, Moz, UMoz, etc. See what other SEOs are saying the impacts were for changes that they made to their site that are very similar to what you're looking for. Go out to the forums, right? Webmaster World is a great resource. Inbound.org is a great resource as well, where people can sort of tout their improvements, maybe complain about the things that they changed that didn't have any impact at all, and then follow up with the tools of the trade for input, right? SEO Clarity, Search Metrics, Conductor, Bright Edge, etc. These tools also provide a lot of data related to modifications they've seen their customers make as well. So what you really want to do when you're estimating the benefit is take the assumed benefit, right? So let's just say that consistently you're hearing in the blogs that if you make this change, you'll see X% benefit in increased traffic, for example, and then apply that to your current numbers, right? So if, for example, the previous click-through rate studies that we showed for mobile, that if you go from second position to first position and you see an increase in 7.9% CTR up to 27.7%, then you take your current keyword CTR out of Google Webmaster Tools, or what is it now, Lauren? It's Google Search Panel or something like that that they just changed to today. And then, of course, apply your site's conversion rates based on the analytics that you have. Right. So once you get those numbers, you can then sort of use this equation to figure out what your impact would be: search volume, CTR, conversion rate, and then, of course, your revenue per visit. Combine this into a nice little estimation, and you've got your estimate for impact. That's sort of an all or nothing scenario, right, where you don't have the opportunity to test a few pages first and then apply it universally. I've been in a couple of situations where the site was so templatized that it was like, okay, well, we either do this or we don't do this. We don't partially do this. There's a great risk in that if you make the wrong move, you make a bad change to your canonicals, for example, you could really throw off your traffic pretty badly. But if you're able to, test first when possible. Really use the scientific method, and if you're doing conversion rate optimization, use A/B testing or multivariate testing in those cases. If you're aiming for an organic traffic impact, throttle your releases across a few pages at a time, see what the impact is there, and then apply it further on your site as you're going through. And then finally, commit to the dollar figures. Once you have your estimate, commit to those dollar figures. SEO can oftentimes be a very anecdotal industry, right? We go, well, we saw this when we did this, and it was great, right? But you really have to get beyond anecdotal, right? Get into the numbers. And then be conservative, right? So back at Dell, we would give an estimated impact for the changes that we were looking to make. And we were told by our finance team, all right, well, that's great, cut that number in half, right? What they didn't want to have happen was that we get 90% of the way to our estimated revenue impact and then be considered a failure, even though it was a fantastic increase in revenue. So we ended up having to cut all of our estimates in half. And this turned out to be a great reputation saver, right? Again, you do not want to be considered the boy who cried wolf in this case. You want to be someone who's considered reputable and actually delivers more than promised. That's always the best thing. And speaking of finance, get finance buy-in. If you have a finance person that you're working with your team, make sure you're passing your recommendations through them. If you can convince a finance person, they're very conservative, you're more than likely going to be able to convince your company's steering committee to commit to your project requests. So answer the really important questions. What are your KPIs? What is the incremental benefit to this business? And then how long will it take to reap these benefits? Some of the requests that I put in had some benefit within year 1, but the greatest benefit was in year 2 and year 3 in those cases. So you might want to consider doing that. So, Lauren, we're coming up on poll 2 here. The question is, what is your number 1 biggest challenge in your role as an SEO or an agency person? Is it getting priority in your budgets? Is it prioritizing your tasks and goals? Fighting external influences such as Google's many algo changes? Or fixing issues caused by other teams in your job? I've done this many times. Or other. Or no, I'm good. So.
Great, and we have about 30% that have voted so far. So this is all good information, Keith, because sometimes I think one of the most powerful traits an SEO can bring to the table is the ability to step back once something major occurs, whether it's industry-wide or update-wise, or even like the sky is falling build-up to Mobilegeddon. That didn't happen because when you do have a company whose whose team members' time you're going to put into your project, budget you're going to put into the project, they're like your own reputation internally, whether you're in-house or for the client. It's always good to be able to step back, look at the entire situation, the big picture, and see what really needs to be done that's going to get the biggest change first. So it looks like we've had about 65% of everyone vote. So I'm going to close the poll and go ahead and share the results.
Fantastic. All right, so the number 1 thing is prioritizing tasks, it looks like, and I totally get that. I've been there many times where you have so much that you need to fix. How do you prioritize that? And figure out what your number 1 priority is, your number 2 priority is. I can certainly speak to that effectively here, I think. It looks like number 2 here is getting priority in budgets. Yep, been there. And fighting external influences. I'm surprised that wasn't higher, Lauren, because Google, sometimes they like to throw little things in, and you're just sailing along as an SEO and you're thinking life is good, and then suddenly a big change happens and you have to scramble to figure out what happened, right?
Agreed.
Yeah, so maybe we can talk a little bit more about prioritization in the Q&A portion of this section. I'll get through to my my slides now, and we can get to that later on. So another way that you can really help yourself, quite frankly, is be cooperative with other organizations. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about product and release management, and a little subtitle here, iterate to liberate, right? We'll talk about what that means here in just a second. So in many cases, I found that the changes that I wanted to make to a site in my previous role were huge, right? They were very big. We're talking about complete URL overhauls. We're talking about implementation of hreflang and the many different alternates for hreflang on pages throughout the site. And these were pretty grand projects for large sites. They're not easy to just push through overnight. And in many cases, what I had to deal with was someone saying, well, I can't get you everything you need, but in the short term I can get you this. And so you see here you've got this on the left side, you've got good, on the other side you've got bad. Well, and what I ended up with was something in between, right? At least I wasn't as bad as I was, but I got something. So and this is something I had to, as an in-house SEO, especially a technical SEO as a functional lead, had to get very comfortable with. To compromise is not to sacrifice necessarily. Sometimes you have to have a very small iteration after small iteration instead of a very large iteration, right? So think about your projects as you're implementing them and break them down into what are known as minimally marketable features, right? What is the minimally marketable portion of this feature that will start seeing results in the short term, and then what can you build upon later on to see even more results in that feature? So think about your projects and break them down into sprint-sized tasks. A good example of this would be, for example, canonicals. I know that at one of my previous employers, we had 5 different platforms, 5 different huge business segments, and getting canonical tags put on all of those segments would have been a monumental task because it was 5 different development teams. So what I had to settle for was to get canonicals put on one segment first, then the next, then the next, then the next, then the next, right? So, but in the short term, in the near term, because I was able to get it on one segment, at least one segment of my sites, or my company's site, was, you know, ranking better, right? So, and then as you're working with your product manager, I hope you are working with a product manager because they're actually very good about helping you with this. Thoroughly communicate what your vision of done is. Now this may change, but at this point, say, well, here's my vision of done. Here are my iterative releases I think can get us to done, and we can go from there. So as you're working with your development team, as you're working with your PDM, listen, right? System limitations. Are there any system limitations that would keep you from doing this? Are there any conflicts that might pop up with other elements on the site? These are very important conversations to have because you don't want to implement something that breaks another portion of your site, because what will happen is they'll rip your code out first because it's the newest, and in order to sort of preserve what was there before. So always keep these conversations in mind as you're dealing with your product management team. Talked a little bit about minimally marketable features. This is actually a portion of what is known as agile, right? I don't know how many of your businesses out there are agile, how many still use waterfall. I've been in businesses that use an agile form of waterfall, which doesn't make any sense at all, but they still manage to do it. And depending on the size of your technical ask, you may need to break it down into smaller pieces. And so what waterfall does is it basically, in one fail swoop, tries to implement everything you want done at one time. And in some cases, this can take 6 months. In some cases, this can take a year, or it can take 2 years to do. An agile process with minimally marketable features allows you to release feature, then feature, then feature, then feature, and eventually getting to done, maybe in the same amount of time, so it takes 2 years to get the entire thing done, but every 2 months, every month, you've got a feature that's adding benefit, SEO benefit to your site, right? And the really cool thing about using an agile approach to development is your definition of done may change 3 iterations into the project, right? You might get 3 iterations in and go, "Ooh, maybe I was wrong about wanting to get this done because something else changed at Google," right? I mean, how many times have you started a development project at work only to find that 3 months later Google had some other change that's a higher priority, right? But you're bought into the waterfall process. So an example of this, and I really hope you don't have to decrease your page load times by 6 seconds, but this was just the easiest way I could sort of talk about iterating your requests, right? So let's just say page load times are they're killing your rankings, they're killing your user experience, and you really need to reduce your page load times by 6 seconds. In a waterfall environment, that 6 seconds would be handled in a single release over 6 months, a year, whatever it might take. And it might involve optimizing your caching servers, tag management, code optimization, server upgrades, and other optimizations as well. If you go into an iterative release, however, and you break it down into, let's say, 2 iterations, you might be able to reduce your page load times by 2 seconds just in your first iteration by doing something as simple as optimizing your caching servers and doing server upgrades, right? So rather than waiting an entire 6 months to get 6 seconds off your load times, within a month you're already down 2 seconds. So you can already start reaping the benefits, so that the next iteration, in which you may drop it by 4 seconds, you know, at the end of the 6-month period, is just, it's icing on the cake, because you're already well on your way to having a better page load time. So finally, prove out the ROI, right? If you get something implemented, make sure you're reporting those successes. So measure, report, rinse, repeat, right? I love Yogi Berra. He always has great quotes. If you don't know where you're going, you will end up someplace else, right? So you have to measure first to know where you are, and then, you know, claim where you're going, and then basically measure whether or not you you actually got to where you were going. So where are you now, right? Take a look at your URLs and your keywords. Pair those up. See how well you rank with those. You know, with those keywords for those URLs. Are the right URLs ranking? If not, fix that, right? Look at your URLs and your conversion rates. Are you converting with the traffic that you're receiving? Well, maybe you're targeting the wrong keywords. Maybe your page is bad. Maybe your UX is bad. Track as early as possible to avoid any sort of seasonal interference. So oftentimes, I've seen this many times, where an SEO will make a change and they'll see a tremendous lift in traffic, and they'll say, see, this is me, this is all me. And then if they actually step back a little bit and they looked at the year-to-year picture, they'll see that, oh yeah, well, it just so happens that I made that change right before Christmas season, and we got the same amount of additional traffic last year as well. So you don't want to look foolish. Again, your reputation is on the line. I hate to keep saying that, and I hate to make in-house SEO seem so political, but it really is, right? If you're not managing your reputation internally, this is problematic, right? I'm not sure you're going to be there very long. And where would you like to go, right? So where are you now? Where would you like to go? And then revisit this, right? As you're building out your projects, as you're getting things done, revisit and see if you're still going in the direction that you really want to go in, right? And are you seeing what you thought you would see in the process? If you are, obviously, evangelize your success, right? I don't care what you think of me unless you think I'm awesome, in which case you're right, right? But also be prepared to be transparent, right? Yes, report your successes, but also report your, I don't want to say failures, let's call them learnings, right? If you made a change, it didn't produce what you thought it would change, well, okay, well, let's communicate that as well and say, well, we didn't see what we wanted to see, but here may be why. But if you are reporting your successes, be sure to put out a company newsletter. Be sure to provide your executives summaries and reporting based on your performance. And also, don't hog the limelight. You didn't implement this yourself unless you're also a developer and an SEO and a product manager and a system administrator. There are people who helped you get to where you are in this success, so make sure you have an attitude of gratitude. Make sure you turn the spotlight on the people who helped you, and make sure you say thanks. So, coming up on poll 3 here, Lauren, just interested in seeing how people are dealing with training in their organizations. Do you currently offer SEO training? Yes, we have classes. Yes, we offer periodic sessions. Yes, I train one-on-one as needed, or no. And for periodic sessions, that may be like brown bag lunches as well.
And the results are coming in really quickly with this poll. Looks like we're almost at 50%.
Awesome.
Great information. Okay, we're going to be closing it soon, and I do have one quick question for you, Keith.
Yeah.
With all of the the old in-house jobs that you've had over time, did many of them have internal training programs, or is it something that you implemented internally yourself, or how did that typically work?
So oftentimes there was not a training program in place. In fact, Dell was the only company I've worked at where something official was in place. Dell has a thing called Dell University, and you can basically train on anything, right? and the search team there happened to have a very detailed certification program that people could get involved in. And so if you look up Dell on LinkedIn, and Dell and SEO, you'll probably see a lot of people who weren't necessarily SEOs, but they're SEO certified because of that training session. But in previous jobs, I would hold brown bag lunches to talk about the importance of SEO, and people really enjoyed that. But in cases where even that wasn't available, I would try to meet one-on-one with developers and with product managers to talk about how this was going to benefit the company overall. So
Great. Great. And in terms of poll responses, we have about 23% coming through saying that yes, we do have periodic sessions. 15% the one-on-one is needed, and only 8% saying that they have a class structure as part of everything. So it looks like the brown bag lunches have won.
Yeah, well, or the nose. Unfortunately, it looks like the nose have won. So, well, I sympathize, but I would say that in those cases, certainly reach out to individuals in your organization who directly influence your projects, and sit down with them, offer to buy them lunch, maybe buy them a beer if you're into that, and talk about SEO in general. Just slip it in, just sort of like get them drunk, then talk about SEO, and then they're sold. I'm not endorsing that, by the way. So the reason I asked that question was I really wanted to talk a little bit about spreading SEO consciousness in your organization. SEO has stopped being an individual organization's role in many companies, right? It has become something that the entire company is responsible for. So I really try to urge people to find ways to implement SEO consciousness in their organization. And the reason for this is, well, if you fail to secure funding, if you consistently fail to get resources for your projects, you might want to focus your energy on internal training instead. And this can really help agencies, for example. If you're in an agency and you're dealing with a customer that just really won't buy into whatever you're saying they need to have, perhaps it's time to offer to set up a class, buy them lunch. People love free food. So if you offer them free food and then you teach them something in the process, this can really aid in your efforts going forward and working with your in-house folks as well. So in order to spread SEO consciousness through your organization, you have to get executive buy-in and approval and prioritization. So maybe the first person you meet with and have this session with is an executive. And once you can convince them of the value, then they can get prioritization behind what you're looking for. Then you want to develop your training material and then establish your classes as need be. So getting executive buy-in and approval is of course the first step, because basically that's the only way you're going to get prioritization for people to actually show up. Sure, food is a great incentive for people to show up to your classes, but oftentimes if this is also part of their individual development programs as well, which some companies have, they'll be more inclined to join as well and pay attention to it. But in order to do that, you need to show the financial benefit of SEO, but also these classes as well. Then develop your training material, right? Customize your training materials per specialization. And so at Dell, we had not only my technical SEO class, but there was also a copywriting class for SEO, keyword research, other classes that other, like marketers would want to know, for example. So really customize your training materials to meet the needs of the person you're speaking with. If you start talking to a developer about keyword research, they're going to be like, I don't care about that. But if you talk to them about canonicals, hreflang tags, and a few other tags, they're certainly going to be more inclined to listen to you. Use real-world examples. I've tried my best throughout this session to talk about some of my individual stories from my past jobs, but unless you tie this to real-world examples, people are not going to buy into what you're saying. And then update regularly, because obviously Google's algorithm is updated regularly. Things change, and so your training material needs to change accordingly. Once you've done that, then set up your classes. So I recommend for medium and large businesses to either go for a full course curriculum like we had at Dell. So this is for larger businesses. Certification courses are great. People love having pieces of paper with their names on them and a little gold star beside their name. They like that. But in cases where you can't get that, then set up lunch and learn sessions, brown bag lunches, etc. And then, of course, do your best to follow up with these people on a regular basis to refresh their knowledge as things change, especially your technical folks. Um, for small to medium businesses, maybe just the lunch and learn brown bag lunches are the best approach, right? You buy food, you bring people in, you encourage people to attend, and the more people that learn about SEO, the more likely they are as they're going through their own tasks each day, asking, I wonder if this is going to impact our search engine rankings as well. In cases where you can't get that sort of buy-in, as I mentioned before, the best thing to do is to just reach out to people individually. Offer to buy them a snack, offer to buy their lunch in a cafeteria. I don't know, just sit down with them, talk about some of the challenges you've had, and tell how what they're doing can really benefit the overall company, because people want to know that they're doing something that has some sort of value to the organization. So that's really my discussion for today, but I really wanted to reiterate again, what you should take away from this course today. Make sure that as you're prioritizing your SEO deliverables, you're doing it specifically for your business needs. You can't just have sort of a shotgun approach to blasting every SEO change out there and hoping one of them will stick. This is not going to work. The more you can prioritize to your specific business needs, the more likely you are to get buy-in. Work with your finance team and your PDM team, your product management team, to not only get your ROI estimates, but also to figure out if this is something that needs to be iterated, and then of course scale according to that. Finally, measure your KPIs before and after, and then publicize your success. So that's my presentation.
Excellent, Keith. Thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And we have some questions coming in. And just a reminder for Think Tank attendees, if you have any questions for Keith, whether they're specifically about the presentation or anything halfway relevant, please feel free to enter them below. One of our first questions that we had come in was basically about what are the types of free or I guess mid-range tools or educational services you would recommend folks get started with to start that internal evangelism around SEO.
Yeah, I can't reiterate more than I would say. Search Engine Land has a great beginners SEO course, as does Moz. The Search Engine Journal have an actual beginners course available.
We don't have a course per se, but we have multiple ebooks and guides.
Right. Yeah. So those, go to the blogs. The blogs themselves oftentimes will have these types of training materials that you can steal from. I mean, frankly, that's what I did. I would see what they're doing. If it worked well with me, I would use that in the training materials that I put together. Free right there. I do know that there are agencies that offer in-house training specifically. I think Jessica Bowman, I think her group offers in-house training as well. Oftentimes, I'm pretty sure that the many of the SEO platforms offer training. I know that I just got back from Japan where I did training over there on behalf of SEO Clarity. But I know that I do training 3 or 4 times a week, basically. So if there's a need for a class, I would say that you certainly reach out to any platforms you're currently using, but then of course use the free resources that are available on the blogs.
Excellent, thank you. Also had a question come in from Alan, who is fresh out of college and the only person basically working on all things digital marketing at his company. He wants to know, like, where can he start in terms of finding good organizational spreadsheet examples or possibly even workflow type examples on getting started?
Yeah, so great question, and I completely sympathize with you. I used to work for a CEO, and his most used phrase was, "Oh, let's just hire a college student for $10 an hour to do that. That should be good enough," and it never was, right? But I do sympathize. Especially in smaller organizations, you've got one person who's wearing many hats. I would highly recommend looking at some of the agile organizations online. A lot of those Scrum certification groups offer free organizational templates for Excel. I just downloaded several myself from Scrum Alliance yesterday that look really, really awesome. I haven't used them, but like I said, I just downloaded them, so I would definitely take a look at that. Maybe even some PMP, like project management certification sites out there offer free template downloads. I would certainly look into those as well.
Great. This is more of a broader question, but now that Google Webmaster Tools is rebranding over to Google Search Console, and Google's also shut down or planning on shutting down or not updating their Google PageSpeed Insights tool, what are some other tools that you would recommend to help with overall mobile optimization in search, or mobile friendliness?
Well, so that's a couple of different things, right? So Google, first of all, I don't think they're actually shutting down the page speed tool. I think it's just it's a developer API that they were using that they're shutting down. But also the page speed analysis is not necessarily the mobile friendly test either. So those two things should stick around for Google for the time being. But if you are looking for some free tools or some reasonably priced tools, I always recommend like Screaming Frog to test your overall page weight, responsiveness, and those types of things. Trying to think of other tools that might work for that, especially for mobile friendly. Lauren, any suggestions you have?
One of my favorite all-around like site in terms of like site speed or load time tools is Pingdom.
Pingdom. Okay.
Pingdom's tool. What I would say is make sure that you have it set to USA. By default, they usually use a European server. Pingdom, and then we can compile a list of some other tools out there. There are a lot of different tools that kind of change your browser into what the site would look like on a mobile phone versus tablet or whatnot.
Yeah.
So we can send some of those after the think tank's over. I have another question come in from Eric, more so about client-side politics. But as an agency, he has to have conversations around the importance of correlating SEO effort with overall ROI. Mm-hmm. And what are some of the best ways to break down barriers to get clients to share that type of internal information or data with you if they may not be? And I'm thinking perhaps Eric's alluding to like overall traffic conversion sales data, but maybe even getting clients to open up to other data such as PPC related data or whatnot. And are there any best practices or questions or conversation starters that you feel are great there?
Well, if you're dealing with a client, hopefully you've got access to some of their analytics as it is. And so I think the real key is to begin to show them what SEO currently offers as value to their organizations. Like I said in the presentation, if you don't know where you are now, it's difficult to know where you can potentially go. So understanding your current set of analytics, the current value of that traffic, so organic traffic as opposed to direct load traffic, is the conversion rate equal, is it less? But overall, what is the general value of each visitor coming in from organic? And if you can increase even slightly the amount of organic traffic coming in, that revenue per visit, obviously, as a consistent driver, should show you the incremental benefit of SEO. So I would certainly take a look at the current analytics, measure against what you perceive the benefits you're going to bring to the table are, and then apply your RPV, your revenue per visit, to the additional traffic, and there you go. As long as you're not targeting keywords that have nothing to do with the business, you should be able to apply that same RPV.
You had mentioned earlier, Keith, that you like to kind of come in and cut expectations in half sometimes on specific projects that you're looking to get funding for internally, not only to make sure you meet your goal, but even to beat your goal. Along with cutting that expectation or making that expectation a little bit more realistic, what kind of I guess, what other methods do you utilize to predict the time it will take a project to roll out, especially on the enterprise side where, like I work with some sites where I have the login for the CMS system, and if I want to make some changes to a title tag, I literally just like log in with my own password,
Yeah.
change title tag, update, done, right? But that can
Yeah.
take weeks or months within a larger company. So how do you plan for the time and turnaround with these projects?
Yeah, so I can speak to the technical side. From the content side, generally, it's not as long as it takes to get a technical change done. So uh, first of all, it really requires a good, consistent line of communication with your product manager. I had a very healthy relationship with all of my product managers at Dell, for example, and I would sit down and we would just basically walk through every single thing that we were trying to accomplish. They were familiar enough with the development process to go, oh, okay, that'll probably take 2 weeks to do. That could probably take a month and a half to do, and I could get rough estimates based on that. Once they were able to take our plans over to the development team and get confirmation on those release numbers, we could then start saying, all right, well, within the next 2 months, we're going to get the following items off of our request list, and we'll start seeing benefits, right away, or based on the complexity of the change. It might take several months to get that, but the release cycle certainly requires communication when you're dealing with the dev team. The content teams generally take a lot less time to do that, but again, I need to reiterate, make sure you're measuring it beforehand so that you understand what that, if you send a request over to the content team, they make an update, that you can actually show impact as well. Does that answer your question? Maybe?
Yeah, it does. And one thing I would also say, like if you are if you are a vendor or an agency working with an enterprise company, or if you're the enterprise company vetting and selecting vendors, really understanding the time constraints that can be part of that project is
Mhm.
incredibly important. Because you had highlighted the pioneer group earlier.
Yeah,
That's pretty much the same group I like to call the cowboys, like the kind that
yeah,
come in like, we're gonna change this, bam, bam, bam. The next thing you know, nothing gets done
right, because
because
there's no corporate buy-in.
yes, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. So really understanding that both on the agency side and on the in-house side, and taking the time to define those, because if not, you could start a project, especially if you are an agency, you could start a project that's really destined for failure from the beginning
right.
because none of it may ever become implemented.
Well, and that's again, I really wanted to call out agencies in that respect because I know a lot of them deal with that same scenario where they're going into an organization and they're getting stonewalled because the buy-in isn't there. So the key, of course, is education in that case. And once they have an opportunity to talk to people about the benefits of SEO, then they're more likely to get that buy-in and get their project pushed through.
Great. Well, thanks again, Keith,
Yeah,
for contributing here on the SEJ Marketing Think Tank webinar. We really appreciate it. Twitter's
yeah,
been lighting up with hashtags, so if there's any questions that we missed or whatever, we'll be sure to send them over to you. For everyone, Keith, what's your Twitter handle that you can share
yeah.
with
Just
everyone?
to follow me at Keith Goode. That's KeithGoode. Um, yeah, that's me. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. I'm happy to touch base with you there.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks again, everyone. And just to let you know, our next SEJ Marketing Think Tank webinar will be held on June 3rd, 10 a.m. Pacific time, same bat time, same bat channel. It's going to be with our executive editor, Kelsey Jones, and moderated by Brent Satoris. The topic is 5 reasons why nostalgia and marketing works so well. And if anyone watched the Mad Men finale, they'll probably figure that out and sign up for Kelsey's webinar. So again, our next SEJ Think Tank webinar is on June 3rd, 5 reasons why nostalgia and marketing works so well. Again, Keith Goode with SEO Clarity. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. This is Lauren Baker with SEJ, and thanks again for everyone for attending. And the recording for this installment of the SEJ Think Tank will be available on YouTube within the week. So thanks a lot, everyone. Thanks again, Keith.
Great. Thanks, Lauren.